So the Rotten Tomatoes score for The Last Jedi, the audience score is 51% now, down from 56%, I believe, like a week ago. And even the critic score is down to 91% from 93%. Now, that critic score was always mind-blowing. I mean, that puts it in the league of like masterpieces like The Godfather or something. Like, is The Last Jedi a literary, a marvel of American cinema? Is this a storytelling masterpiece? Hell fucking no. Even people who like this movie can't possibly think that this is a masterpiece worthy of even a 91%. Okay? 91%. That is disgraceful. Obviously, Disney owns or is about to own even more because it just bought Fox. It owns so much of the market, and these guys, they don't want to be shut out of reviewing movies. They don't want to be shut out of the after parties or the premieres and stuff. So these critics are, pressured. Even if Disney isn't like putting pressure on them, just the fact that Disney is so big and it has in the past punished people for saying things it didn't like. I mean, it recently banned one journalist from doing reviews for them because that paper had released an article critical about something they did in Anaheim, like some kind of or in the Disneyland over in Orange County, something about I don't know, like land or taxes, something they were doing that was kind of shady, and the local paper, wrote an article about it, and they banned they banned that paper from doing any reviews for them. So clearly, they have done things in the past that, that punish people for speaking their mind. They don't want you speaking your mind if it's negative. If it's positive, they love you to get out there. So that's why we have a 90-something% score. But the audience is free to report what it really feels, and they feel this movie's crap. Honestly, I don't even know how people can rate this at 51%. Okay, the movie makes no sense. But yeah, that was also true of The Force Awakens and even a lot of movies. Although to be fair, I mean, as bad as Force Awakens was, as I said, as many problems there were with the plot, it was a masterpiece compared to The Last Jedi. The Last Jedi was just a fucking dumpster fire. Um, but I mean, it was just incoherent. But this is like so many movies. This isn't just Star Wars. So many movies are just brain dead. Um, like Star Wars is like trying to be like a superhero movie or something. I think the people behind this movie they look at what's popular and they're like, oh well, superhero movies are popular, so let's make Star Wars more like that. Oh, Guardians of the Galaxy was popular and it had a lot of like cheesy, funny jokes, so let's try to do that in The Last Jedi. Let's add even more stupid jokes than there were in The Force Awakens. But that's not what Star Wars is. Like, Guardians of the Galaxy works in its setting. Like, it doesn't take itself seriously, so that works. Star Wars has always kind of been a serious drama, and to make it a comedy, I mean, you can have funny moments, but to make it a comedy, it just doesn't work. It changes the tone of the film. Now, if you want to do that, I guess, but then why didn't if Disney wanted to make, or if they didn't want to make a drama, why did you buy a dramatic franchise? I mean, Star Wars is described as a soap opera, a space opera. It's a soap opera in space. Why would you, if you don't think drama is going to work, why did you pick a drama? Now, it doesn't, like, I don't think that they understand what the property is. They just knew that it was successful, so they bought it. And they said, yeah, it's kind of like similar to a superhero thing, right? I mean, we got Marvel. Just have the Marvel guys write some shit up for us. Like, I don't think they really put much thought into it. They just thought it was going to just write itself. And in a way, it should write itself. I mean, Star Wars it's a space adventure. How hard can that be? It shouldn't be hard, but over the prequels and now these two movies, it's like we can tell that apparently it is hard to do it for some reason for these people. The Force Awakens was popular because nostalgia. We all were excited to see Han, Leia, and Luke on screen again. We're excited to see the Millennium Falcon again. And after the tragedy of the prequels, we were happy to see something new. We were happy to, I got caught up in it too. When I left the theater, I was like, yeah, Star Wars is back. I got caught up in that whole Star Wars is back moment. Even though, like, even that night that I saw, I realized there were just a lot of holes in the plot, and it just didn't make sense, and I didn't think they were setting up a good story arc for the trilogy. But, I said, well, we'll see in the next movie. They'll answer the questions that were left unanswered in Force Awakens. They'll answer that in the next movie. Nope. They totally just fucking shat all over that. It's just incoherent. And I, even like Star Trek, too. Into Darkness, where you have, like, Spock, like, beating up Khan on that floating thing, that flying thing in the middle of San Francisco. It's like an action scene with Spock beating somebody up, like Spock. Like, when you think of action hero, fucking Spock, right? Like, that's what that character stands for, is violence and physical action, right? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. Like, the people that write this stuff are just retarded. They can't, or I mean, in my cynical moments, I would say it's not them. It's not that they are retarded. It's that the audience is, because the audience eats it up. I mean, Force Awakens, was like, $2 billion at the end of it. Like, even though really, if you sit and look at that story, it's pretty incoherent. Like, it's not. I mean, where did Lord Santeca get that map? Why did Luke leave a map? Did he want to be found? But then in The Last Jedi, we found out that he didn't want to be found. How did Maz Kanata get that lightsaber? I mean, it fell into a gas giant. We saw it fall into a gas giant, and then it just shows back up, and no explanation. And when she's asked about it, Maz Kanata just says, "Oh, that's a story for another time." And that, well, we know we're never going to come back to that. Why did C-3PO have a red arm? And then he mentions a red arm. He's like, "Oh, you didn't recognize me because of my red arm. I'm never going to mention this again." And then in The Last Jedi, he doesn't have a red arm anymore. What the fuck? What? I know. It's probably explained in some, it's the novelization or some comic book or whatever. I mean, but those are almost always, ipso facto justifications, like, or post facto. My Latin is shitty, all right? But they make those justifications up after the fact. So we say something, that doesn't make sense, and then we just go back and make it up. Like Maz Kanata. I'm sure there's a story in a comic book somewhere that describes how that lightsaber was found and then how it got to her. But they made that up after the movie, is what I'm saying. Like, it wasn't constructed as part of the narrative. It was a plot hole that made no sense, so they just had some comic book guy fill in the gaps after the movie came out. It's an incoherent story. It doesn't make any sense. And then Starkiller is like 100 times bigger, but it's blown up by one tiny fighter again. He blows up a whole fucking planet. And you can watch it blow up, 4 or 5 planets, and you can watch all the planets blow up. Were all the planets in the same system? And were they in the same system as the Starkiller base? So the First Order built Starkiller base in front of the Rebels in their capital system, because apparently one of the planets that was blown up was supposed to be the capital. And at the time I thought that it looked like Coruscant, but it's not Coruscant, but it still is the new capital of the New Republic. It's some planet called Hosnian Prime. And again, I only know that because of some comic book that came out after the story, because it's not explained in the movie. You just see these planets blow up and then they're gone. But you can watch them all from the surface of Starkiller Base, so they're in the same system. So Starkiller Base is built in a Rebel, is built in the capital system of the Rebels. Like, what? The capital system of the New Republic. The First Order built a planet-sized Death Star right in front of you, and you didn't notice? Like, it's incoherent. What the fuck? And it gets 90-something%. Same as The Godfather. Same as, like, I don't know. I mean, look. I know they're just movies. They're entertainment. Whatever. But when you think of the original Star Wars, that's like a cultural icon. It's It's a masterpiece, really. I mean, yeah, it's got some cheesy elements, but I think, that story is going to be told and retold and dissected for centuries to come. Just like we pick apart, I don't know, Romeo and Juliet or Hamlet or whatever. And you can say, oh, well, Star Wars is cheesy. It isn't a masterpiece like that, because they got, like, space wizards and shit. But if you look at, like, I don't know, like, great epics, like, in Macbeth, he talks to a ghost. I mean, that's like Force Ghosts in Star Wars. I mean, in like the Odyssey, ancient Greek masterpiece that we still talk about thousands of years later. There's like magic and gods and monsters. I mean, it's just like a Star Wars tale. This is just a modern fairy tale, right? I mean, but I think it's so well done. It's so timeless. It's the timeless hero's journey, and it's done so well. I think Star Wars 1977 is going to be remembered for centuries. And then I look at Last Jedi and I'm like, damn, it fell to this. And yet somehow this is still popular. This movie's still made like $1 billion so far, or a little bit under $1 billion. It'll get over. It'll be like $1.5 billion by the end of it. $1 billion and a half. Like, it's just brain dead, and yet somehow it sells. So that's why I say it's not the writers that are retarded. They're writing a story for us. We are the retarded ones. Like, this is what we spend money on. People spend like $10 per ticket to watch this utter shite. It's garbage. Most modern movies are just brain dead garbage. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, but hey, it makes billions of dollars, so what the fuck? Who am I to judge?